Hey guys, Alex Leal here with StrokeBall.com. In this video, we're going to be talking about your initial linear move towards home, otherwise known as the drift. The drift is the shifting of the pitcher's center of mass in an attempt to generate forward momentum towards the target. The drift's main purpose is to increase the amount of linear energy into the early phases of the pitching delivery so that you can move faster down the mound towards your target. As we can see with these pro examples, the drift occurs throughout the entirety of the leg lift and into the very early stages of leg decline for pitchers with higher leg lifts. I like to explain to my players that the drift is the weightless application of linear energy toward home that occurs before the pitcher begins to sit into the back leg and glute in the hinge position. Once the back leg begins to accept weight and the feeling of weightlessness is gone, the drift is over. Alright guys, next let's talk about some cues and mistakes to avoid when talking about the drift. Alright, number one thing we want to look for with pitchers that are struggling with the drift is to make sure that when they're coming set, they're not too far over the back leg. If you're too far preset here, your weight is distributed over the back leg like this, all of your momentum is going towards second base. Remember, as we go into leg lift, we want to move towards home plate. So simply if you're too far back here, as you come into leg lift, you're going to stay there. If we get you more stacked, more centered here, what happens is a lot of times is just with that small adjustment, as we start to go into leg lift, we'll see that the pitcher is now directing linear energy towards home. The second mistake I see a lot of pitchers make that limits their drift ability is that they come set with their feet too spread apart. If we're coming set like this, what actually happens is as we go into leg lift, we're moving towards second base. All of our energy is being directed that way. Remember, the whole point of the drift is to maximize the amount of linear energy during the leg lift towards home. If we're starting too wide, we're doing the exact opposite by letting our momentum take us towards second base.
Wave after wave, wave after.
All right, another cue and something that I work on with a lot of my guys is that it's essentially directing the force of gravity in a way that allows you to drift. So if you see a lot of pitchers that are balanced, if you just get them to where they come up and they're balanced and they can hold peak leg lift, the force of gravity is running right through their leg and directly into the ground. If you want to kind of get a kid to have a good idea of what you need to do in order to drift, what I like to say is redirect that force of gravity at a 45-degree angle into the ground. So if you're coming straight up and you're holding, that's 90 degrees. If you're going at a 45-degree angle, it'll look something like this. All right, another thing to make sure, another cue to work on to make sure that we're able to drift is to make sure that we're staying stacked. I talk about this in the coming set section, and I talk about it during the drive phase. But essentially what you want to do is you want to make sure that your torso is right over your pelvis so that you're staying in a if I were to draw a straight line through my head, down through my belly button and my pelvis, it would be in a straight line. What we don't want to do is we don't want to lean too far back this way. I'll see some guys come set like this because they're so worried about staying over the back leg, and they begin to lean like this, and as a result, when they come into leg lift, they essentially just fall back towards second. So ensure that as you come into leg lift, that we're staying stacked with our rib cage, torso, over our pelvis. So as we come into leg lift, we're coming like this, we're coming straight up, and we're not falling backwards. So it should look something like this.
My face above the water. My feet.
All right, and the last cue I wanted to discuss, and I believe a lot of kids are taught this at a young age, is we need to understand that you should not be perfectly balanced at peak leg lift. If you were perfectly balanced at peak leg lift, that essentially means that you got no drift. You got no initial linear move towards home. Remember, the three most important things when we're talking about a good lower half and an efficient lower half in the pitching delivery is 1, the drift, 2, sitting into the hinge during the drive phase, and 3, rotating the pelvis into front foot strike. If we completely eliminate that first one of the drift, then we're only getting 2 out of 3 and we're getting 66% of what we really can with our lower half. So we want to make sure that we're not just coming straight up and down and being balanced here. We want to make sure that as we lift, our body is moving that direction. And lastly, here's a throwing progression series that will help players learn how to drift correctly. Alright guys, this first drill is a simple field drill I do with guys that have never felt what it feels like to get early forward momentum. Apply a resistance band around a player's waist and have them perform their leg lift, and the band will automatically pull them in and help them feel what the drift feels like. The second drill I do with players is another field drill. Simply have the player grab onto rings or a rope and have them lean and drift during the leg lift while hanging onto the rings. I usually have the player hold their peak leg lift position to feel what being in a successfully drifted position feels like at peak leg lift. The first throwing drill in this series are walking windups. By having the player get athletic and walk into their leg lift, it already directs their linear energy towards the target and helps the player feel properly directed linear energy. The next drill I have players perform are step back windups on flat ground. This helps players learn to sequence their leg lift while linear energy is being directed towards the plate. Now in this next drill, I transition the step back windups onto the mound to help the player create more linear energy and learn to sequence their leg lift while learning to control the drift towards home. The next drill I do are step backs. I find this drill to be a good one because players learn how to stabilize on their back leg and redirect their energy back towards home, although the step back takes them towards second. This drill really focuses on capturing the feeling of the back leg during the drift. You can do this with or without the core velocity belt. Lastly, I love utilizing the core velocity belt in a full delivery to get players to understand the feeling of the drift while going through their full delivery. In this case, I have the core velocity belt pulling the pitcher's front hip towards the target. As always, thanks for watching. If you want to see more baseball improvement videos or submit a video for analysis with us, check us out at strokeball.com, your home for practicing smarter to improve faster.
Slowly drifting.